Good evening to everyone. This is Mestre Almir speaking on the Altamente channel. It's a joy to be starting the activities of this triennium with the presence of the General Representative Mestre José Carlos Garcia, and his wife, Conselheira Danielle. I'm happy to be starting once again this work in this triennium, in this moment of the OE-UDV Digital. And I want to initially express my gratitude for your presence, sir, and for you, ma'am, here, José Carlos and Conselheira Danielle. I wish for you health. This work that you are doing for the OE-UDV Digital, may it be a work that brings benefit to your family. And may we all find the best possible way to support your mission during this time. So, José Carlos and Conselheira Danielle. So I first want to ask each of you to speak as an introduction to the work that we're doing here today. And may it be something that we can all take advantage of. This is Mestre José Carlos speaking, Mestre Geral Representante. So I want to express my gratitude for this opportunity, and thank you to you, sir, for continuing in this work of the spiritual orientation. And for me, it's an honor in this moment to be here and speaking with the families and with the whole Irmandade, the whole community of the OE-UDV Digital. And I ask that we may always have the light of the Mestre in our life, so that we may have this union, this união, always stronger and stronger, with better conditions in our life for us to be able to unite and bring peace. Because Mestre Gabriel wants us to be in peace. And this peace begins in our homes, with our families. Our family is so important. So I'm happy to be here and to be able to speak and to be able to share some things about my experiences in my life within this OE-UDV Digital. Thank you. And this is Conselheira Danielle speaking. I'm also very content with this opportunity to be here in this live stream presentation, in this moment in which we can have an interaction that's, it's a virtual interaction, but still I consider it to be an important moment for us. And my gratitude to Mestre Almir Nahas for the invitation. And I'm here at the service of you all and Mestre Carlos for us to be able to begin. This is Mestre Almir speaking. So for us to begin our presentation, there's an expectation from a number of people, because this is the first time that we are having this opportunity that's more open, that's more broad with more people, to have the presence of this illustrious couple in this moment for our whole Irmandade, and that this is attending to more people because of this format. And so for us to say that it's important for people, it's been important for me to hear from you, Mestre Carlos, your vision with respect to this moment of the União, the feeling that you have about this work, and the first manifestations that you want to provide for us as in the form of directives for us in the OE-UDV Digital. And there are some things that are more specific to the spiritual orientation that I want to ask you afterwards, but at least at first, if you can speak some words to us for all of the Caianinhos that are here accompanying live, and also for those who are going to be able to watch later, because the video is going to be available later, and this video is going to be available permanently on the Altamente channel. And so if anybody has questions about the vision that Mestre José Carlos has, and Conselheira Danielle as well, you can put your questions into the chat on the YouTube live, and we'll have the opportunity for at least a number of people to be able to ask their questions. So Mestre, if you could at least give us more of like a general idea of your vision at this moment and what is important for us to have attention with in this moment in the União and also within humanity. Just working out the microphone. So this is José Carlos speaking. So first I want to say that this mission to be in this place of the General Representative Mestre, I didn't think that I would be in this place at this time, because in my life I was doing really well there in the United States, but there's a moment in life when we have to put ourselves at the service of this União do Vegetal. And it's a moment in which we have to have gratitude for Mestre Gabriel, for everything that we have received, and that sometimes we have to also do something in favor of this União do Vegetal and do that which Mestre Gabriel is wanting, because he created this União to make a peace in the world, and we have to work for this peace. And what I hope, what I'm always asking Mestre Gabriel, in the moment that I put myself in this place to represent Mestre Gabriel as the General Representative Mestre, I asked him that he may give me light and may give me orientation so that I can direct the União do Vegetal in a way that's good, in a way that's tranquil, in a way so that spontaneity can be present in the life of the Caianinhos, and to be able to follow this União do Vegetal with more lightness, without a lot of heaviness on our shoulders. Something that's lighter, and for us to be able to be happier, because I feel that happiness is something that's really important and something that we all want. So in this moment that we are living through, it's so unexpected. Everything's so unexpected. I didn't expect to be the General Representative Mestre, and I didn't expect that the União do Vegetal would be in the moment that it's in right now. It's so much difficulty in some places. There's many places where they weren't able to celebrate Mestre Gabriel's birthday, weren't able to drink vegetal that day, many people having to stay home without a lot of ability to have interactions and conversations in person, and have the proximity with the friendships and all the good conversations that happen after sessions, these things that we're really feeling, we're really missing those things. But Mestre Gabriel said that there exists difficulty and there exists facility. And I hope that the facility can present itself to all of us so that we can return once again in those places where they're not having sessions, for people to be able to have regular sessions with the people in our, with our friends, our presence of the people in our families, our children to be able to be with us, which is important. And I hope that this moment of happiness can come as soon as possible. Even though we're going through a moment, this moment that humanity is going through, we hope that it doesn't take too much longer, but we are finding a way to be able to find ways to be able to see each other and speak about topics of spirituality, just like we're doing today. And I'm in Brasilia. I've been in Brasilia, and José Danielle's been in Porto Velho. And so at least we're seeing each other a lot on this little screen here. And hoping to also be close to all of you also today through this little screen, and hopefully in person soon. And I also really like to be close to the jovens, the young people. I always, when I meet somebody or when I greet someone, I always say, hey jovem, hey young person. I really love this word, and I love always to have this presence of youth. And so because before I was the General Representative Mestre, I directed a session here that I promised the jovens here in Brasilia that I would direct a session for them. And then I went to Fortaleza, and I met a lot of jovens there, and I felt really well there in Fortaleza. And now this past weekend, we had a jovens session. The way it was really young, we had opportunity even for people at like age 12 and up to be able to drink vegetal in the session that we had this past weekend. It was something really good. And we're here ready with a lot of hope, with faith that better days are coming. These are some brief words to start. This is Mestre Almir. So, Mestre José Carlos, we know that the attention that the families need to have with their family, and the attention, the importance that the União do Vegetal gives to the families, it's not anything new. This comes from the time of Mestre Gabriel and from his practice since the very beginning of the União do Vegetal. And it's just that this work has been getting more and more organized over time, starting with the vision of each general representative mestre that has arrived in this place. And today we are here in this place, in this work of the spiritual orientation of teenagers and children. And for the past 13 or so years, it's been something more structured, and it's something that's still growing within the União do Vegetal as it's still growing within the União as a structured work. And we call it, with a lot of care, we call it OE, which is spiritual orientation, orientação espiritual. And it's a work with the children, and what we've seen is that it's a very important topic. It's something that we're doing to support the representative mestres and the núcleos and the central mestres of the regions, and the general representation as well. So what I'd like to know, in your vision, what is the most important thing for us to pay attention to within the conducting of this work of the spiritual orientation in each location and each núcleo, taking advantage of this experience that you have, the time that you've been in the União do Vegetal, and so much time you've been accompanying this work of the attention for the children and the families. What is it that you are envisioning for this period of time that you see is important to register here right now? This is Mestre José Carlos speaking. I feel that we need to be really close to our children, to our children and teens, to our family in general, because this União, for it to be able to grow more, it needs to be in union with our families. So when I moved to Porto Velho in 1977, we had numerous sessions that Mestre Pernambuco directed. We used to call it sessions for children. They were children's sessions. And sometimes it was like 5, 6, 7-year-olds, and also some like 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds. And there were a lot of kids that would go to the sessions. So it's been a really long time since the União has been giving this greater attention to our families. And for the children of the União do Vegetal, our children have been growing up along with us, needing support, needing orientation, needing spiritual orientation, and needing the presence of the mestre, and needing the presence of God in their lives, in each of their lives, knowing that our União do Vegetal is a religion. It is a religion that shows us the best way to live, the best way to conduct our lives. And the spiritual orientation in the núcleos, it is a priority. It is one of the biggest priorities. And in all the places that I've been, especially recently in the United States, we did a lot of work with the young people. And for me, when I was the representative mestre, I always participated in all the activities, including the sessions and the events for the young people. I participated, and I was even Yoda. I was the Yoda for them at the gathering of the young people in the United States. And I felt really good because they felt very close to us. I felt really close to them. And this made it so that a bunch of them started to value more the União do Vegetal in their lives. And after that gathering that we had there in the United States, I felt that a lot of young people started getting connected to the União, and they started to see that the União is a good place for them. And they started seeing like, oh, sometimes they weren't feeling so well, they weren't feeling very attended to. And so we have to find a way, those of us who are in this place of the direction, representative mestres, all of us in the direction of the União do Vegetal, we have to pay close attention, because these children, they're the future of the União. They're going to direct the União further on. And this orientation, it depends on a lot of us. It depends on if we, for example, my father, let me speak a little bit about my upbringing with my father. When I was young, when I was like 8 years old, there were two people, they were arguing in a bar, and we walked out in front of the bar. We were walking by the front of the bar, and there was some kind of argument that was happening, and it was because they had a farm and one guy's cattle had gone onto the other guy's property, and there's this whole topic and they were arguing about it. And one guy said, let's resolve this situation. Let's call over Mr. Pedro, because he's a person who's serious, he doesn't lie, and he's gonna know exactly whose cattle this is. Whatever he says, then it's gonna be resolved. And so my father, who's Pedro, my father went there and they explained the situation. Oh, there was this cattle that got onto the other person's property, and we don't know whose it is, and we're arguing about whose it is. And my father went there and he was totally calm, and he helped to resolve the situation. And I was seeing that my father was going to go and resolve a problem from other families, from people who had pieces of property. And this really called my attention, that my father was going in, because my father was like considered to be a person of moral integrity, who had a firm word, and that they would listen to him. And he had all these things about him that were right. And so this was an example. So we have to consider this, that the example that we are giving to our children. So the people that are directing the União do Vegetal need to have a way of conducting ourselves that we give an example, so that people can trust us, so people can know that we're on a path of salvation, a good path. We have to give good examples. So the parents are very important for the children, and the people of the União do Vegetal are very important to give this example, so that we can inspire trust, and for people to be able to trust us, and for people to be able to trust us, then we have to be clear and be who we are, so that we can help to structure and see that so that we can have good families and a good place. Because the União do Vegetal was the place that I was looking for when I came. And thanks to God, I planted my roots in the União do Vegetal, and I'm continuing to strengthen them and strengthen myself, and seeking to put into practice that which I learned, and learn the things that were transmitted by the mestres of origin, and all the things that have been transmitted to me. So, and this is what I wish for all of us, for myself, for all of us, so that we can have so that the União can be more and more a fortress for us and for our family. Mestre Almir speaking. I want to take advantage to say that over time, the teams of the spiritual orientation, they have produced really beautiful work in the núcleos, and also in this more general field of the União. We've had many conversations and presentations on important topics. And in the previous triennium, we heard a number of times Mestre Paulo Afonso, who was in the place of the General Representative Mestre, speak words with respect to the parents, saying that there were situations in which in the families in which the parents were needing more orientation than the children. Mestre Paulo Afonso said that he noticed this, that the parents were needing more orientation than the children were. And we sometimes perceive that some people, parents, fathers, mothers, people who are responsible for taking care of young people, they forget sometimes that the spiritual orientation that is practiced in the União do Vegetal is that we are saying, care for your children. You take care of your children. Don't delegate it to somebody else. The spiritual orientation needs to come from the parents to the children. And so I ask you, sir, as a father, and you, ma'am, as a mother, what is it that you can say, especially for the parents in this União, and also grandparents and people who are responsible for minors, who take care of these young people and these children, in terms of their role, all these caregivers, what their role is with respect to their family. What can you say about this, for us to get to know a little bit about your vision about this? So Conselheira Danielle is going to speak first about this. So I've always believed that we need to have each thing in its due place. So when we have the opportunity to receive a spirit of a child in our family, we have the responsibility. We receive them as we are guardians for the spirit, for us to orient them, and so that they may continue to follow the flow of their life and structuring themselves to seek their greater objective, which is to become a good person, for children to become people who have characteristics that can really serve them in their spiritual evolution. So I see clearly that the spiritual orientation within the field of the center is a support, but it's not necessarily something that substitutes the family, or something that it's not something that substitutes what happens in the homes of the people, but it's a support. And so I think it's very interesting that we have in the field of the center people who have conditions, like both technical knowledge as well as spiritual conditions, to be able to help people spiritually. But I understand that each activity and each effort that's made, and the responsibility of each being has to be directed to each person who has the responsibility. José Carlos speaking. I think this is important, and I think that we do what we can with the spiritual orientation so that the families can help their children, and the spiritual orientation is important in this moment. So I'm remembering a situation. I think that I believe that we should give the tea to our children for them to be able to connect more to the União. For example, Conselheira Jandira, who's the daughter of Mestre Gabriel, she wanted him to give her a doll. And she's probably told this story in a number of places. She wanted him to give her a doll. But he said, you can only play with the doll when you drink the tea, because it was not a material doll. It was because when she would drink the vegetal, a doll would appear, and she would spend all this time playing with this doll in the borrachera. It wasn't a material doll. And so whenever she would ask for the doll from her father, he would say, oh, you just have to drink the vegetal and then you can play with your doll. And the vegetal, it was her dream to have a doll. And so then, and so that was how she could play with her doll, was when she drank the vegetal. And then one day, Mestre Gabriel brought a new doll, an actual material doll, to her that he bought in Rio Branco, and it was the exact same doll that she had seen in the borrachera that she had played with before. And then she was so touched that she got this doll that was just the same one that she had played with when she had borrachera. So, for example, we always had this practice in Porto Velho, is that when a child or young person is asking to drink the vegetal, then we have the duty to give it to them, because it means that they're needing it. So for me, my custom is, I learned this in Porto Velho, whenever a child asks me to drink vegetal in the session, I always let them, because I think that that means the child needs the vegetal. And that, for example, sometimes the child is small and young, but the spirit isn't so young, and sometimes the spirit is needing something. So we have to seek to attend to them. But the spiritual orientation that's given in sessions, it's very good for children and very good for the parents, but orientation at home is really good, because there's a lot of things that we learn at home. I learned in my home that I shouldn't lie, I shouldn't say things that weren't true, always speak the truth. This is something that comes from the time that the child is in the cradle. They have to learn this at home. And sometimes parents just let the kids be however they're going to be, and then kind of like wait for a session, or they wait for somebody in the União to tell the kid how they should be or how they should improve. So we have to pay attention to this, because the education, the way that we raise our children has to happen at home. We can't just leave it aside. And this is the way that we raise our children from the time that they're in the cradle. we have to remember that how it is that we want them to be when they're older. And the Uniao is a religion that gives spiritual orientation. It helps people prepare for the world. But the way that children are raised is very important for the parents or whoever it is that's taking care of the child, whoever the caregiver is, that they have to orient children from the time when they're little. Don't just pass it over to someone else thinking like, oh, the spiritual orientation of the Uniao is gonna make my child better or give them a better future or do something different. So I think the participation, it needs to be the family so that things can function the right way. This is the way that I think. This is Mestre Almir. So there's a question here from, so we're going to be able to answer some questions here from some of the people here. So there's a Mestre here. So so this is Mestre Rodrigo, who's monitoring the questions on the chat. And so Mestre Rodrigo is going to ask some of these questions. So there's a question that came in that's similar, that has to do with some of the things that were just being said. How is it that you see, Mestre José Carlos, what is your vision of the family in the União do Vegetal? When we see that outside the União, we see some different kinds of values that they're different than those that we want to practice within the União. So what's the importance of the family and the presence of the parents as the ones who are responsible for maintaining peace and bringing good orientation to their children? There's a number of questions that are kind of this topic, how to have good values at home when we see that there's different values happening out in the world. So Mestre José Carlos is asking Conselheira Danielle to speak on this. So Conselheira Danielle says, I think it's of fundamental importance to seek to have values that contextualize peace. They're spiritual values, but that help to form us. That we're all in constant training. We're all in formation, and we're still learning to have values and learning how to conduct our life to be able to have a better way of living and to improve our way of life. And these things that the opportunities that we have to experience these things within family, principally sincerity and having purpose, having good intentions. I have a criteria that's very strong in my home and my family for us to seek to be transparent, for us to seek to be sincere, for us to seek to have conversations, have dialogue, so that peace can always be present. When peace is present in our home and in our life, our tranquility is greater. And our children can feel this. They see this in a way that's much more evident. And our presence in the União do Vegetal, the continuation of our family in the União, I also consider this to be something important. It's a basic principle. It's a foundational principle, is to have my son in the União and following the precepts, following the beliefs that we have in the União do Vegetal. They are precepts that are things that we bring with us, each of us individually, but that we also begin bringing them into our family from the União. And also as we learn these precepts of the União within our friendships in the Núcleo as well. And so I see this to be key, the experience of people in the União do Vegetal. Because oftentimes we receive in the Salon of the Vegetal, we receive counsel that orients us, that makes a difference in our life. And how many of us have been in a session of the União and we've received counsel and orientation that served as a north in our life, as a guiding star in our life. So this orientation, having this orientation within our family, it has a fundamental importance for all of us who are Caianinhos. José Carlos speaking. I feel that it's so important to have the presence of the parents in the sessions of the OE-UDV Digital to show their children that it's a good place, that it's a place where we truly learn things, and that our children, and because most often children will follow the examples of their parents. So for example, sometimes when children are raised by people who aren't their parents, they'll find a way to get the support that they need from the parents that they have, the people that are raising them. And sometimes there are people in their lives also who aren't in the OE-UDV, who are raising some of these children, like people that are guardians of these children. So for example, I'm in my second marriage. I separated from my first wife, but my children are from that marriage. And I always told them anything that they wanted to do, they had to talk to me, even though I wasn't there sometimes when they were at their mother's house or with other people. I always said for them to have an open and frank conversation and dialogue with my children. And they always would talk to me. So even though I wasn't always there, they always knew they could talk to me. And we had some difficulties, but it all worked out well. And all of them are in the OE-UDV Digital. They're all well. And so in the sessions, we learn a lot. And in the sessions, our children can also hear things that are really important that we say, that their parents say, but there's some things that we say in sessions and there might be the same things that the parents say at home, but the kids aren't gonna think it's as important. But when they hear it in the session, then they'll really hear it. So it's really important that the family be in the OE-UDV together, because the OE-UDV Digital is a very important shelter that takes all of us in. It receives all of us. And sometimes we suffer, but that's also part of it. And we always say that the OE-UDV Digital is a great ship. And here I am being the captain of this ship at the moment and seeking safe harbors for this ship. And may our families be this security, this safe harbor, and that we can always be well with our families so that we can find this safe harbor that we're seeking. Because we're on this journey on this planet here. It's not very easy on this planet, but we have to find a way to encounter facility for us to be able to live with love, live with tranquility. It's something really, it's really good. So the OE-UDV Digital comes bringing a light for us to be able to unite with our friends and with our families. So Messi Almir speaking. I have the happiness of being able to follow in the OE-UDV along with my wife and our children also follow the OE-UDV, and you, sir, and Conselheira Danielle as well. And there's many cases. We have today, Messi Carlos, we have over 8,400 minors in the OE-UDV Digital that are being attended to through this work of the spiritual orientation, over 8,400 children. And there's a lot of like little counties in Brazil that have fewer residents than the number of children that we have just here in the OE-UDV Digital. So we have a lot of situations where there's a family who's separated, where the mother is separated from the father and the mother raises the kids, or vice versa, and the father raises the kids. Or, you know, it happens sometimes when one person isn't in the OE-UDV. So for these people, what is it that we can say about, what can we say from our experience as people who are directing the center? How can we support these families who don't have both the father and the mother following in the OE-UDV? José Carlos speaking. It's not an easy situation, because sometimes the father isn't in the OE-UDV and he doesn't want his ex-wife to take his children to the OE-UDV. That happens sometimes. And they say, no, just wait until they're older. And the mother's wanting to bring the child, but the father complains because he's not following. And so he interferes and says, no, it's not good for the kid. And he doesn't want to let the kid go. And sometimes it's a problem that the adult it's sometimes the problem that the adult has, that it's, but what's happening is that the kid is needing some orientation. It's going to be good for them to be able to be in the session. They're making new friends there. And unfortunately, one of the parents is not allowing for that to happen. And sometimes they do permit that to happen, but they don't find that it's very important. So of course, if both parents were following in the União, it would be much better. But sometimes there aren't the conditions for both to be able to follow within the União. And so we have to do things in a way that, for us to be able to, we have to find a way to support the parent who's bringing their child, who's in the União. And sometimes there's kids that have to wait until they're 17, 18 years old to be able to drink vegetal. And sometimes because of the interference of one of the parents, then the kid isn't able to really learn the values that the parent who's in the União is wanting to instill in their child. So what can we do to support them? This is a topic that's really important for the spiritual orientation. And so the spiritual orientation needs to come closer to be able to help these situations, to help the parent who's alone. And this parent is needing it even more than the people who have their families together. And we have to find a way to be able to be closer to these families. And we should find a way to attend to these families with more frequency. And see if Conselheira Danielle wants to say anything. Yes, Conselheira Danielle will speak. Conselheira Danielle, speaking, you know, there's a number of different kinds of situations, but one of the things that I see that's important in the União Vegetal is that we have respect. We have respect for the families and respect for the position that people are in. And we learn within the União Vegetal how important it is to captivate. And I feel there are ways for us to be able to reach people's hearts and to show what the União is. And of course, always respecting the limit of those families, the limit that people have. But I think that captivating them is the key, so that people who are in this situation, so that they can come closer and feel what the União is. Because I know some people who have been in this kind of situation, and they were in this situation, and they had these problems, but today they are socios of the União. They had a problem, and they didn't want to let their child go, but then later on they change their mind, and then they start seeing that's a good thing, and they themselves even become socios. So we have to see, because respect is the key, and we have to find a way for them to be able to experience a little bit of what the União is, or at least be able to know what the União is. And because at first it might happen that the person's heart isn't reached by the things that we do. And sometimes the person has a different vision, but see what we can do to open the possibility for this person to get to know the União, to be able, even though they're no longer a part of the family present, I believe that most parents are aware of their responsibility they have for their children. And when they see that their child is going to a place in this religion where they're feeling well, and when a parent really wants what's best for their child, they see that it's good for their child. And to see if there's a way that through love, we can open up this possibility for people to get to know the União, even if the family is separated. So that's one of the ways that I understand it. So Conselheira Cici, who's Mestre Almir's wife, is now speaking, saying good evening to everyone, taking advantage of what Conselheira Danielle said. I want to ask, what is a message that you can give today to our teenagers? What is a message you can give today to our teenagers? What is a message you can give to our teenagers with what they are going through these days? So Mestre José Carlos speaking. I'm really happy when I'm with the jovens, with the teenagers. What I can say today is that I'm going to be really close with them in this time. I'm really wanting to be close with them. I already have promised that when I go to Fortaleza, that I already promised that I'm going to come back to have a preparo with the jovens there. And I'm going to go back there and have this preparo for us to be able to talk and hang out. And the way that jovens get together and talk and hang out, it's so enjoyable. So we've had a lot of gatherings with young people, a lot of encontros, and I feel that jovens, they want to get to know the União. A lot of them, not all of them, but most of them, they want to get closer to the União, but they want the União to be like, they don't want the União to be all like rigorous, and because young people don't want us to be like telling them, oh, hey, you guys are behaving this way, and they're going to think that we're really lame. So they think that I kind of, when I talk to them, they kind of feel like I'm a joven like them. And so we have to be careful with the way we talk to them. So what I can do is I can just be close with them, and I want them to be close to me. I don't want to be distant from them just because of the place that I'm occupying, that as if like this place would be distant. I want to be close to everyone, especially the young people. And I want them to know that they can come and talk to me, because there's a time of the União in Porto Velho that I knew what the young people were thinking, because they trusted me, and so they would tell me things, what they were experiencing and how they were feeling about things. And I really liked that. And I never broke that confidence and that trust that they instilled in me. And I never like would reveal things that they were saying. And sometimes there were serious things that were going on with them, and they would confide in me, and they didn't have the courage to tell their own parents, but they could talk to me about it. And then I would talk to them, say, hey, let's talk and let's figure out the best way for you to resolve this, and try to find ways to help them. And all those situations, we resolved them. And a lot of those young people today, they're representative mestres of núcleos. And at the time they were really distant, but they came closer because we got closer to them. And we have to know how to get close to them and trust them for them to be able to trust us. And so we have to get closer to them. And that's what I can say to the jovens. I want to be close to them, and I want them to be close to me, and let's talk a lot, and it'll be a really good thing. And Conselheira Danielle speaking. So some words that I can say with respect to this, with how I'm feeling about this at this moment, is for jovens to believe in themselves. Believe in yourself. All of us, we can do this. José Carlos, he's 73 years old, and he's a joven, he's a young person. He's like a teenager in my house. And he's a person, he believes a lot in himself. And so I think that believing in yourself is a key that can bring a lot of solutions. It can solve so many problems. It can open a lot of doors, because when you believe in yourself, you open a huge potential for your own growth of belief, like internal belief. And this is a key. I think this is a key that's important, because when jovens believe in themselves and believe that they have potential, and that there exists within them a seed, and they can discover what this potential is, I think this is really important, because it's the beginning of a path, or just the beginning of walking on a path for this young person to open up spiritually and have an opening in their thoughts, to be able to be led in a way that's happier in life. And because we all are seeking this happiness. And I feel that this self-knowledge and seeking within ourselves, it's all part of this, but like trusting ourselves, always believing that there's something good within ourselves, within the young person. This is something that's a key. And this is something that I can say to the young people, to believe in yourselves. Okay, Messi Rodrigo is seeing what other questions there are. So Messi Rodrigo speaking. There's a lot of questions interestingly, a lot of questions that have been asked are things that you have already covered, but there's a few questions that you can go into a little bit more detail. So the question is, how do you, Sir Mestre Geral Representante and Conselheira Danielle, how do you see what is the best way for the parents to work to plant the teachings of Mestre Gabriel in the hearts of the children and the young people, and to captivate them, for them to be able to come closer to the União and also to come closer to their own parents? How do you see that this can be strengthened within people's homes, so this can be implemented more easily in the families? So Mestre José Carlos speaking. So what I've always thought is that for us to get closer to the young people, for them to trust us and to know that we're there to help them, and for us to talk with them without being critical of them, without telling them what they have to do, because jovens also like to have some freedom to do what they want to do, when what they think is the right thing to do. And I think, for example, in the session that we had here, there were a lot of young people of all different ages, some 12 years old, 15 years old, 17 years old. And they're all different ages, but they all had similar issues, wanting to know, like, what are they going to be in life? What are they going to do? Having hope for the future. Some, like, they don't know what's going to happen in their life in the future. And if we get closer to them and captivate them more, for them to be able to have trust in the União do Vegetal, it's like what Conselheira Danielle was saying, for them to be able to trust themselves more and to believe in themselves. Because Mestre Gabriel said everything, man can do everything. It just depends on wanting to. So that they can really understand this, to know that they have a huge value to us. The young people have so much value. They're so important. And people can really give people can really value Mestre Gabriel, and the young people can value Mestre Gabriel as well. And they need to be able to feel well attended to. And so I opened the session and I said, anybody who wants to make a chamada to help the borracheira grow, and there were even jovens who made chamadas in the session, and they spoke, and they kind of took over the session. I thought it was awesome. And it wasn't like me there telling them what they had to do. It was them talking about it, that which they were wanting and what they're wanting to see happen. And for them to be able to have this desire to, like, show up themselves, because there's so many really smart, intelligent jovens. So they're more spiritualized than we were when we arrived. And there's a lot of young people who know exactly what they want, and they're not going to waste a lot of time. They really know what they want. So I feel this is something that's really good to have young people in the sessions and let them present themselves and show who they are, and without like a whole lot of rules and like structure, like, so we can work more within spontaneity. Let them be who they are in the session. Conselheira Danielle speaking. When I arrived in the União, I was 28 years old, but I know that if I had arrived earlier, I would have the same behavior that I had at home, because I learned from my parents. So this is fundamental, because sometimes people want to, like, give teachings to the children from the União do Vegetal, but I was really accustomed to here in the beginning of my walk in the União. I received orientation that I heard a lot of orientations, but the example was what was really captivating for me, because the example really has an effect. So when we want our children to come closer to us in the União, we have to show them the examples of the things that we learned in the União. We have to show them, we have to be the example for them. That's the best way, is for us to be the example. Because I already had been raised. I was 28 years old when I came to the UNIAO. I had already been raised at my home. So I already had the things that I had learned from the way that I was raised, from the example of my parents. So if I had been born in the União do Vegetal, the same thing would have happened. I would have followed the examples of my parents. So I feel that the best way is for us to be examples, to be the examples for our children about how it is that we should behave, how should we position ourselves in certain situations in our life, so that they can absorb that, because they absorb it. They absorb the things that they feel and that they see at home. So that's how I feel about it, and that's how I see it. So we want to see if we can get to more questions. Because we want to ask Messi José Carlos to speak a little bit about those sessions for children that Messi Pernambuco used to direct in Porto Velho. But first, we're going to answer a few more of the questions from people through the chat. So Messi Rodrigo is, so there's a child who's asking, what's the importance of children being present in sessions of the União do Vegetal? This is a child who's asking the question. What's the importance of children being in sessions? Messi José Carlos speaking. I feel it's very important. It's like I said at the beginning, when a child asks me to drink vegetal, I always find a way to give them vegetal. In Porto Velho, it was easier. It was a lot easier and more common because they were always just right there nearby, and the young kids, they liked it. It was easy for them to drink vegetal, and I think this is really important. And there in the United States also, whenever children would ask me to drink vegetal, I always gave it to them. Because it's that Messi Gabriel said, it's sometimes the person is needing it. So I think that we need to find a way for our children to be closer. Today we have these limits of the age. I think we're going to have to improve this. We're going to have to improve this because it's important that these young folks, and there's like, for example, there's some young people here in Brasilia. They're like 10 years old and they're asking to go to sessions. And if they ask me, I'm saying, you can come to the session. There's no problem for you to come and drink the tea, because I feel like they're needing it. So I'm feeling like there's not a prohibition from some authority. There's no authorities like outside the União that are prohibiting or limiting what we can do inside the União. We have to pay attention to our families, and I think it's important that it's for our families to be present, especially in these moments, like right now, like difficult times that humanity is going through in general. And so the tea is a really good thing during this time, because in addition to be able to calm the parents, it also helps to calm the children as well. It helps them to be more tranquil. Because people, if they're like closed up in their houses, so that's why like nobody's able to handle living in apartments anymore, because children are a blessing. But man, to be in an apartment with children and having to be like in quarantine, it's really not easy. So having the moment to be able to go and drink vegetal and be able to see other children, I think we're going to have to improve this for the children to be able to be present, for us to be able to have our children closer to us. Because there was a time in the União when the teenagers, they didn't even want to know about the União. They were just, it was like they weren't interested. There were only sessions every once in a while. The sessions were more geared towards the parents or towards the adults, the socios. And they didn't really want to participate in the sessions. Sometimes they didn't even really want to go to the sessions, because it was a lot of doctrine and it was doctrine that didn't even really help that much, didn't help the adults get better. And so the young people weren't so interested. But the doctrine is good. Doctrine is something that's really important, but doctrine has to come in a way that a person's able to receive it and feel well with it. So I think we're going to have to work on this so that our children can be closer to us in the União do Vegetal. We have to find a way for them to be closer to us. And so if we have a family, find a way for this family to grow together. Messi Almir speaking. just take advantage of this moment to say that we did a study, a survey this past fall, or the end of last year, and the representative mestres of the nucleos, that they have the right to be able to have at least 2 extra sessions per year, to have extra sessions for children, but it wasn't a very large number of nucleos who actually had these sessions for children. Most of the nucleos, they just had those sessions that kids can come to that are typical, like Mother's Day and St. Cosmo St. Damian and Christmas, but they didn't have like a single extra session to attend to the children, a lot of nucleos. So that even what's in the law of the UNIAO, it's really important for the representative mestres to take advantage. And it's important that you're saying that. I always learned this too, sir, that when a child asks, that this has been my practice, whenever a child asks, to be able to give them the tea. And there's also those parents who want their kids to drink vegetal. And so the parents are the ones who are kind of like pressuring the kid to go. But that's not what you're talking about, right, sir? And Mestre Carlos responded, right, that's not what I'm talking about. So we're going to see if there's another question. And then, because it's been almost an hour. So we're going to talk a little bit about the content that we've produced within the spiritual orientation with respect to the topics of the valuing of life and vocational orientation. The work that we are doing to help the families in general, it's a result of the work of a lot of people. There are thousands of people that are working for the spiritual orientation in the UNIAO in general. But before this, Mestre, I want to just check with Mestre Rodrigo. I think there's time for us to answer. I think there's gonna be a lot of unanswered questions just because of the amount of time that we have, but if there's any other questions that we can answer today. So Mestre Rodrigo there's still a lot of questions, but Mestre Rodrigo is gonna ask some questions. Because this live stream is to be able to know your thought, Mestre José Carlos. So I'm gonna take some of these questions and kind of summarize them together. So people are asking, how did you arrive in the UNIAO? And what are the things that you received in the UNIAO that made you want to follow this path? And how does this relate to spiritual orientation? Mestre José Carlos speaking. So I left home young and I moved to Brasilia to go to school, and later on I was able to come to the UNIAO through some friends, but I didn't really know what it was when I drank the tea for the first time. But before this, I was in a place called Imarachi, and I was kind of like not really believing things. I didn't really trust people, and I didn't really believe in anything, and I was really seeking true friends. I really wanted to find true friends. And I had a friend from work who the person told me, get up early in the morning and ask the sun at the time of the sunrise, ask the sun for what it is that you're wanting. And we used to talk a lot about spirituality. This guy and I used to talk a lot about spirituality. But I had just started to get to know the União do Vegetal. The first time I drank the tea, I didn't feel the effect. And I didn't think that it was what I was wanting. But then a few days went by, maybe it was like a month later, I drank the tea again, the second time. It was with Mestre Jair, Mestre Gabriel's son. He was here in Brasilia. And at that time, then I really felt the force of the vegetal on that day. And then the desire was awakened in me to get to know this, because I had a sense that this is how I was going to get to the place that I wanted and meet true friends. And I started to want to follow this UNIAO. And so from that moment on, my way of thinking started to change. My life started to change. The whole direction of my life changed. My life was going in one direction, and then I got a completely different direction from following in the UNIAO. And I've been in the UNIAO to this day. and always seeking to know the teachings of Mestre Gabriel more, and seeking to be closer to the Mestre, occupying this place. And it's something that's given me a lot of joy. I've been through some moments of suffering, which is normal for anyone who's seeking spirituality. The person has to go through some things. The person has to improve their way of being, improve their behavior, their way of being, their way of acting. And we have to adapt so that we have a better way of life. And so I've been adapting and finding a way to have a good life within the orientations of Mestre Gabriel. Being a person who lives rightly, being a person who's following in a good way, and putting ourselves in the place to be able to have more conditions to follow. So this is my arrival in the União. A lot of things happened, and a lot of things, I've seen so many things that made me so happy to be able to be in this place. Knowing that this is truly the path that I found that makes me happy, and that I'm always asking the great Mestre. And I always remember Mestre Pequenina's words that she used to say, as long as I have life, I want to be improving myself. And I think this desire to improve is something really important for us to have a good life and to be happy in the União. And the União do Vegetal for me is truly a safe place. It's a fortress that I found, and I'm so happy to be within it. So, Mestre Almir speaking. So we have someone present here who is here present, who is Mestre Roberto Souto Maior, who's an illustrious person in the União. And he said, I asked Mestre Gabriel how to evolve in the Vegetal. And Mestre Gabriel responded, pay attention. And I said, how? And he said, how can I be happy in my life? And he said, go to school, study. And this is a good message for our young people, study. So this is a message from Mestre Roberto Souto, who's one of the Mestres of the Origin, who was participating here. So Mestre Almir is saying, we're gonna head towards the conclusion, but there's hundreds of questions that came in. And the majority of the questions, things that are like very specific questions that people have asked. And the work that Mestre Rodrigo is doing is seeking the questions that are able to bring topics that are like more broad, that are more like general topics for this particular presentation today. So some of the questions that are more specific or more like particular to Mestre José Carlos and Conselho Danielle and who they are, those people can seek to find out the answer to those questions through the people responsible for the spiritual orientation in their nucleos. And if there's anything that I can help out with as well, you can write to me, Mestre Almir. So, Mestre José Carlos, Conselheira Danielle, I know that you have been accompanying some things that the spiritual orientation has been doing more recently. And I just want to ask you to tell us, from what we've done so far, what are the things that are most calling your attention? What are the things that you see that we should really have better communication with or put out there more? What are the things that can be more useful for this moment that we're going through? Of any of these topics, of the things that we are addressing in the União right now. We just want to hear this word, the words of each of you, because this serves as a north or as a guiding star for us in the União. Mestre José Carlos speaking. Look, Mestre Almir, what I think there needs to be a better communication within the nucleos with respect to the topics of the spiritual orientation, because there are people who either see people in the direction who know very little about the work of the spiritual orientation. They don't know that there's a whole like radio station, and they don't know that there's recorded stories. They're like looking for something for their kids to do at night, and they don't know that there's so many resources. And a lot of people who are even in the direction, they don't know. So I think that the communication needs to improve. But it's not our communication, it's the communication of the representative masteries to the direction in the nucleo, for the people to know that there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of resources in the spiritual orientation that serve for a lot of different things. There's stories and books, and there's so many good things. So I think that what we need is for the representative masteries and for the direction in general to know more about the OE and to know the tools that we have, so that they can know that there are so many things that can help. People don't even know how many things there are. Because I've asked some people in the direction, did you know that there's a whole Rádio Sabiá, the radio station. There's like all this music that's been put together, and it's people in the direction, and it's not even people like far away. It's like people in the direction close by, and they don't even know that the radio station exists. It's a Spotify station. And so sometimes people are in the nucleo and they're going to the Escala session. Sometimes they're like they're really focusing a lot on material things, and they're focusing a lot on material things. And people in the Escala sessions, they're wanting things that are more in the spiritual focus. So sometimes even if our children aren't able to go always to the sessions, especially right now with how people aren't necessarily able to go all the time, to use these tools and these resources that we have to be able to focus more on spirituality, so they're not so focused on the material. And to know that people need to know that this is available. So there needs to be more communication within the nucleos about this. So not really to like take up time in the session, but people just need to know that there's a lot of things that we've already developed, and sometimes people aren't even knowing about it. Before Conselheira Danielle says anything, I want to say that I found a good argument, because people are inviting me to go to the regions, and I say, did you know that the Rádio Sabiá, because this radio station has this name, did you know that it has a playlist of fairy tales and children's stories? Oh, you didn't know? But look, Messi, José Carlos, with all the things that he has to deal with, he knows about this, and you don't know about it? Wake up. I'm going to use this argument when I talk to people and they don't know about it. I'm going to say, look, Messi Geral Representante knows about it, and he has so much on his plate, and you don't even know about it? So, because there's so much material that we have. And there's some people who just haven't perceived yet the importance of what the general representation is bringing. Because a lot of this started during the representation of Mestre Braga, when he was the general representative Mestre, and there's so much that's been developed since that time. People need to know about it. So yes, Conselheira Danielle, what is it that you are seeing? So Conselheira Danielle speaking. So Messi José Carlos spoke about how he's seeing it, and I want to say that I feel that it's a work that's so dignified, and for the people that do this work, I participated in the spiritual orientation in the United States, and I was responsible there for the nucleo, and Messi José Carlos was the Messi José Carlos was the Mestre Representante, and I was this person who was responsible for the spiritual orientation. So I had this direct channel with the representative Mestre. So I think it's just a recognition, because, for example, this book that we have, this book, Family Conversation Circles, this book, and she's showing the book. For people to see this book, there's like techniques. There's people of the União do Vegetal, people who have a lot of technical knowledge or professional knowledge, and they're talking about a number of topics that are really interesting for families in the União. And it's a piece of work that can also be, it's work that's connected to the spiritual orientation. It's a very rich book, I think that it can really be, we can really take advantage of this book. Consigliera Julia Mota and Messi José Luis Cristóbal who put the book together. So I don't have a lot to say, just my recognition for you, sir. You're in your second triennium at the head of this work. And before Messi and Saraiva also did a work that was so good. Like with everything, Messi Almir, things start happening and the experiences start happening, and then we see how things develop. And we can see that at this work, it's so important. I'm so happy because of the support of the General Representative Messi for this work, and whatever I can do to help also, I'm at your service. I don't feel like there's something that I can say right now, like to improve, because I just feel like we can always improve things. Always in our life, we can improve things, but we construct this for us to build all of this. There's a spiritual construction that needs to happen within our own spirituality. So these are my words. So Mestri, I want to say that I'm very grateful. I just want to know if you can tell Messi José Carlos a little bit of what you remember from the sessions with Messi Pernambuco that he used to hold for the children in Porto Velho. For us to have within our historic memory, because you have a lot of experience, you witnessed a lot of things from the early days of the União. So is there something that you can tell us about from the time of Messi Pernambuco with the children? Messi José Carlos speaking. There were some sessions with children and he was directing the session and I was assisting and I was putting on music. Sometimes I would make a chamada. There was one time that the borrachera grew a lot. We were kind of suffocating to organize the situation, but he was really good with the kids. He had a really good way with the kids. So there's one time that I made a chamada that talks about a castle. It was the castle, the ivory castle, the chamada, and the children really liked that chamada about the castle. There were a lot of things that were interesting in the session. And then there was a time later on when we stopped having as many sessions for children. I'm not remembering what the reason was, but for some reason we just didn't, it kind of became restricted and we weren't really able to have as many sessions for children. But then we weren't able to have as many sessions for children, but then things changed and then now we're able to have some sessions for children. And I think that we need to improve this. So there's more sessions that children can participate in to bring our children closer and for them to be able to, because a lot of our children, for them to see how we're, and so Messi Pernambuco would direct the session, there were a lot of kids, and sometimes Conselheira Ana, who's a teacher, and she taught one of the kids. There were a lot of people there who were there to help so that this session would be good. And so the session was very tranquil and for putting on music. And we didn't have as much music back then as we do today. There was more difficulty with music. But today there's so much good music. So I think it's really good to have sessions for children. It's not very easy to direct, but I think it's a really good thing to have. For me, I think like for us to direct a session, there was a period of time that I was directing sessions for Adventicios, like every single fourth Saturday of the month I was directing Adventicio sessions. They're not so easy to direct, but I feel like doing it every single month I started really learning how to do it. So to have sessions for children, we need to just learn how to direct them so we can do it really well. And I think that we're blessed to have children and we have to raise them well. And it's an opportunity for us, it's a good opportunity for us to teach our children something good. Messi Pernambuco was a person, he had a lot of ability to work with the kids in a good way. And so I want to let you know, I'm so grateful. This is Messi Almir speaking. So thank you, sir. The words that you spoke at the very beginning about your objective and all of our objective to work for us to have more happiness and for us to support people's happiness and to value spontaneity. I have been feeling in these in this first time of these first few months here, that you're a person who's very accessible, someone who's very easy to access and easy to interact with. And I hope that people are feeling well. And I hope that you, sir, are feeling well in this position, and know that you can count on us for anything that's necessary. And know that there's a small army of people in the spiritual orientation that are ready to do the work to take care of the priorities of the general representation. And with respect to the families, whatever we can do to support you in that which is in our area of the spiritual orientation. And I want to say in conclusion of this presentation that I think it's good for us not to go on for too long, because at least if we cut it off now, then people are going to want another one. So then we can have another one. People are going to want to participate. So good to have you, this illustrious couple, here with us, José Carlos and Consejera Danielle. And so and Consejera Cici also expressing gratitude. Thank you for your good words. And maybe we'll have additional opportunities like this one. José Carlos saying, I'm not so accustomed to this kind of thing. I like drinking tea, and then we can be spontaneous. But I'm not so accustomed to these kinds of like virtual live stream presentations, but I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'm here at the service of the spiritual orientation. If there's anything that I can do within my possibilities, I'm ready. And I hope that the spiritual orientation can be something really strong within the sessions, within our União, because we really need spirituality in general. And the children and adults and parents want everyone to be able to live happy moments. This is our hope, is that we can have some really happy times. So thank you, and that's it. And Consejera Danielle, I want to express my gratitude for this opportunity, for this special opportunity to be here by your side, José Carlos, and to be with Messi Almir and Consejera Cici and Messi Rodrigo, and also Alexandre, who's here providing the technical support. And for all the people in the União do Vegetal today, because a long time ago, I chose the União do Vegetal as my religion, for me to continue my life seeking spirituality, seeking my own spiritual growth. And I'm very happy with this choice that I made. And once we put our feet on the path, there's no way to go back. I always want to walk forward. I always want to be at the service of this spiritual orientation. And I want you to know that we're very accessible here. I'm very tranquil with respect to this. We'd like people in the União do Vegetal. We'd like to work for the União do Vegetal. This is something that it's an expansion for me as a person, as a spirit in evolution. And I'm feeling really well working for this work of the Mestre. And I always want to continue working because I have a commitment that I made within myself to never be in debt to Mestre Gabriel. I want to have credit with Mestre Gabriel. And so in order to have credit, I have to really work hard for this União. So I'm here at your service, and whatever I can do to help, just know that I'm at your service. Messi Almir, thank you, and until next time. And Messi Carlos, wishing happiness to everyone, and Messi Almir expressing gratitude to Messi Rodrigo and the team with the technical support. Good night. That is the end.